Hi, I'm Dominic from Mako Eyewear, and we're up here at the tip of Australia to do some lens testing. We're staying with CY Fishing Charters on Albany Island, which is just to our south. We've taken this opportunity to come up here and have a look at Cape York. Some of us have never been here before. It's a fantastic area of the country. While we're here, we're going to be doing some lens testing. We're going to be taking a look at different combinations of base colours for our lenses, mirrors, and also some of the high definition and infrared filters that Mako add to their glasses to enable people to be able to fish more effectively. We're going to be having a look at a few different styles of fishing, from flats fishing to fishing the edge of a reef, and also hopefully popping for some GTs. All these different fishing scenarios require different lenses to enable you to fish more effectively and put your lure where the fish are. Let's go and have a look at the tip of Australia, and then we'll come back and have a look at some lenses a bit later on. Critical to any fishing operation is a hearty breakfast, and thankfully for us, Albany Island has a resident mango tree. Each morning Celine would whip up tasty smoothies using the fruits collected off the tree that morning. After breakfast and a couple too many smoothies, Hamish would let us know where we would be fishing that day and what we would be chasing. It was also an opportunity to look at some of the sunglasses that we had along for the trip and make sure we had the right ones for the fishing that we were going to be doing, and also to check our tackle. Not something you wish to be doing on a trip.
They do come off.
After breakfast, the morning ritual of packing the boat followed. As we jumped aboard, we headed out to a reef area for our first real opportunity to land a GT. As soon as we arrived, everyone dived for a fishing rod. There was poppers, stick baits flying all over the place, and it wasn't long before we hooked up to our first fish.
Whoa! Whoa! Oh, they're good GTs.
Looks quite decent. I'm using reasonably light line here, perhaps foolishly. And just popping across this reef area, he's just smashed it. He's just slugging it out now onto the boat, so hopefully he'll get a bit tired soon. Oh, it's a queenie, a really big queenie actually. Thought it was a GT, but it's just a massive queenie. Getting pretty tired. I'm just up here ready just in case I need to go for a dive and Jim has to let him go. I can put it in free spool. Beautiful. Got him. Nice big slab of queenfish. Not a bad one at all. It's a great fight from these things. They don't last very long, so I'll try and put him back as quickly as we can, but the sort of fish we've come up here for, it was a lot of fun on that tackle. Hopefully we can get a few more around here. Okay, we're just casting poppers and stick baits around this little rubbly area just behind us here. We've had a few follows, we've seen some GT, we just landed a nice queenie. I'm wearing the grey base lens from Mako. It enables me to see a little bit more of that structure. It's not overly dark and you can see the subtle differences. So I'm casting the lure, I'm looking for bommies and little patches of reef to aim at. So far it's proving pretty effective. I'm keen to get back out there. Oh yeah, I'm on. Yeah, a little mackerel or something out there. Doing queenie, doing an aerial display. Certainly, they're all around the boat here. We've got queenies just coming up, just out of our eyesight. There's one just behind, it's a little reef shark there. Wow. There's massive GTs following this queenie around.
Yeah?
Yeah, or must be.
Oh yeah.
Or big queenies, maybe.
Want to give me some
Do you want me to grab him with the box?
so you spotted some bait?
We've just come in near this island, we've spotted some bait here and the results are queenfish. There's a fair few around. Just struggling to bring this guy in with this current running past us, but he's also a side hook. Makes it a bit tough, but it's not a monster. A fair bit more growing to do. They're quite prolific up here. They're just built for speed. They're slim lined, big mouth, just run around grabbing little bait fish. I'll shut this one back. Is it a good one?
Nah, it's not a bad one. It's not huge.
Deal.
There he comes.
That's it.
Nice little GT.
Hooked it to the side.
Still hooked though.
Well and forward. Yep. Fill it up.
There you go. Little GT, caught him on a Parla subsurface lure. Just switching it over the reef. So we'll get him back in the water, back with his friends, eh?
So we've just come into this flat sort of area. There's a lot of rubble, little coral bommies here and there. I've actually changed my glasses again to a brown base lens. As opposed to the grey, it's not quite as dark, so it enables me to pick up those subtle differences in depth, but also enables me to see the coral bommies and things like that. With the current that runs in some of these areas in the north of Australia, it requires a constant repositioning of the boat. So after Jim's GT, we decided to head back to the top of our drift. I tied on a popper, thinking that I could work it over the top of the reef and pause occasionally and attract some of the resident fish up to the surface. My plan worked perfectly, and in no time I was hooked up to something that was rather large, rather brown, and rather angry. It steamed off for the bottom, with me in hot pursuit, directing Hamish to follow where he could. I thought I might be winning the battle after a while,
but unfortunately,
Oh well,
it wasn't to be this time.
it happens. Oh, bummer. Certainly made a mess of the lure while he had it. It did not look like that when I put it out there the first time.
After the disappointment on the reef, we decided to head out into deeper water and try our luck with a different technique.
We're out here fishing in a pretty deep area. It's about 40 feet, and we're doing a little bit of jigging. Jim's using, as he said, the micro jig technique, which is very light jigs. I'm using something a little bit heavier. For this sort of fishing, I've actually chosen a grey base lens. The grey lens, there's a lot of sun around, it really cuts down on that light, makes it a little bit more comfortable to wear all day. It's not as important to see the structure because we're actually dropping our jig straight down. So the grey lens base, while it cuts down a lot of light, it really does make it quite a wearable pair of glasses.
Hi guys, we're just in a reef system between two islands up at Cape York. Just doing a bit of micro jigging, which is a new sort of thing that's hit the fishing scene. They're small jigs on light rods, small reels, but you're still using 30-pound braid and 40-pound leaders, so you can give a fair bit of stick to the fish if you hook up. So hopefully we will hook up on some queenies, GTs, stuff like that. Oh, yep.
Yep. Yeah. Present maybe. Oh, there it is.
Queenie.
Queenie. Oh, it's going.
Psycho
ballistic
Queenie.
just out. Oh,
Shark's
shark
after
got it. Shark got it. He's on. Shark's got him. Oh dear. Now you're connected to a whaler. Yes. Oh, let it go. Oh, nah, he's got it again. Here he is, just out here. Oh, he got it.
Go, Queenie, go! I need my lure, you bastard.
After a couple of sharks, Jim finally decided he'd had enough. They can be quite a problem up north, and in some spots you just can't seem to get a fish past them. So sometimes it's a better option to move to a new area and try something different. As we started motoring off, I've decided to take a look around, and I noticed that all of a sudden Hamish had been replaced with Captain Jack Sparrow.
Nice. Cracking. Nail that sucker. Beautiful.
All right.
Yep.
Cheers.
Just doing a little bit more mini jigging on a shoal system about 6 kilometres offshore, and first drop down with a little jig onto a 70 foot of water. We got this nice golden trevally. Put up a pretty good fight early in there, but then once we got it off the bottom, it was okay. Beautiful fish. They get a lot bigger than this, but on this light tackle, really gave me a workover. We'll get the hook out and get him back in the water.
We only managed one golden trevally from our last spot, so we decided to pack it up and head back in for lunch. The rest of the team had been fishing elsewhere, and we were keen to catch up and see what they had caught for the day.
I knocked these up earlier. I didn't. The chef's done a great job. He's knocked up some fresh sushi rolls. Got some chicken. Got some long-tailed tuna just bought out here. Beautiful stuff. Oh yeah, put some wasabi on there, bit of soy, you're into it. I'm double dipping. I've had a blowout. You don't want that to happen.
As lunchtime actually turned into nighttime, there was no more fishing to be had for day one, so the boys amused themselves on Albany Island's local wharf.
Come on. Come on.
Surprisingly, they didn't catch much except the black-tipped reef shark. Tommy amused himself for a few minutes trying to pick it up, until one of the other team members went down and lent him a hand. Quick photo op, he was safely released into the water. After the evening's antics, day 2 dawned. Chef Simon prepared some crab pots for hopefully a mud crab dinner later that evening, and we partook in our daily ritual of breakfast, followed by packing the boats. The weather this morning had closed in a little bit. It was dark and cloudy, but we headed out for our best day's fishing yet.
Okay, we've just come out here, seen some birds working, and we've just started throwing a few lures about. I had a surface lure on. Jim's used the Mako, which he's been using a lot on this trip, and he's hooked a nice queenie. It's amazing what these little light rods actually can stand up to. I must admit, I've been pretty surprised at how much he can get into a fish with that. It's a lot of fun in any case. We've found a school of fish here. It's action aplenty. Oh, Jim. Sort of blue water fishing, you need a nice pair of sunnies that's nice and comfortable to wear. A grey lens would probably be nice. There's a fair bit of light now. The cloud sort of thinned out a little bit from this morning, and that really lets you see through that glare. Well done. Sweet Queenie. Great fish on that outfit. Yep.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. Fantastic.
Let's go, Captain. Keep pushing. Oh, yep. I've just hooked up with this little stick bait. I don't think it's particularly massive. It's going down the side of the boat here. Wasn't far from the boat either. I haven't let him do a lot yet. It's a queenie, I'd say. Oh, he woke up and said, I don't want to be anywhere near your boat, mate. Yep, just a queenie. See if I can get him up. And there are heaps of different lures you can actually use in terms of surface lures up here. This one's more of a stick bait. It's a little less taxing to cast continually when you're chasing things like GTs. If I don't get a strike or don't get any interest on this, I might change to something that's got a larger cup face on it. That'll create a little bit more commotion on the surface, and it might bring a fish up to it. So be prepared to change it up if you want. So this is what we're hooking, just queenies. They're working bait schools up here. This one's not particularly big. Wayne's hooked up in the background. I'll throw this one back. Oh, Wayne's got a trevally. Nice. Beautiful. It's his second one for the day. Not a bad one. Wayno's on again. There's a lot of birds, there's a lot of fish out here. You can see them coming up after your lure. It's pretty exciting fishing. Wayno's using pretty light gear. So I hope he hasn't been grabbed by a large fish. Oh, he has, he's lost it. He's been stitched up. Taught a lesson on his little popper.
So we'd spent literally hours casting metals, poppers, stick baits around these birds and fish working the area. And the challenge went out. Could we catch something on something that was a Mako product? My immediate response, grab a sunglass strap, put it on an Atomic Seeker's jig head, trim it up a little bit and secure it with a little bit of braid. It did look like a deadly effective lure. Little tail on the end. And I wrapped the braid around to make sure that it wouldn't fall off the hook and lobbed it out into the melee. The results almost instant. A short couple of winds and I was on. The challenge accepted, dealt with. All I had to do now was land the fish. I was using pretty heavy gear, so I cranked him in as quickly as I could.
There's heaps of fish down below.
And it wasn't long before he came to the side of the boat. Unfortunately for me, challenge not accepted. As I tried to reef the fish in as quickly as possible,
There he is, right there.
my ultimate nightmare happened. I attempted to swing him aboard, and alas, my hook pulled, and the fish earned his freedom. Devastating.
Just had some really exciting surface and jigging action on busting up schools of queenfish and trevally, and the birds have sort of dissipated now. So what we've done is set a spread of trolling lures. So we've got 2 divers and 1 pusher. The pusher's right out the back as a shotgun. I've got a small diver on here and there's a bigger diver on that side. So what we're doing, we're covering ground and hopefully we'll find those fish again. And once we find them, hook up on the troll gear and then maybe throw some poppers around as well. Go mate, go. Okay, Wayne's hooked up on something, not sure what. I was on the bigger Halco Laser Pro. So hopefully it'll be a decent fish. Trolling's a great way to find fish. Very effective way to cover the water. And often when you get a hit, you can work that area and get quite a lot of fish out of the one spot. A lot of people think trolling's pretty boring and mindless, but it's actually really fun if you do it the right way. It's not just a matter of chucking lures out and hoping for a bite. You've got to work where the birds are and have the right lures and the right depth. Looks like we've got a queenfish here. Not a bad size fella either. Hooked in the back of the head. Often happens with these predatory fish. They smack the lure really aggressively and tail hook themselves. It's not big. We hooked up on the long corner, which is the smaller lure. I ran a fair way back. This isn't a big fish. But it just goes to show, another queenie, just goes to show how effective trolling can be in finding patches of fish. There you go, little queenie on the Halco Laser Pro. Well, we stopped trolling when we found this huge flock of birds. The other boys are popper fishing. I dropped one of my little micro jigs over and came up trumps with something. Great thing about this light gear is it really makes the most of the fish, even if it's only a relatively small fish. It's a bit interesting when you hook a really big one. A lot of the bait up here is quite small, so just like little white baits and things like that. So these little jigs that I'm using are quite good at mimicking the actual bait. So if you can get one in front of a fish's face, another queenie, it's usually quite a good thing to do. All right. Thank you, Justin. Another thing about these little jigs is they're hooked with single hooks, so you can often get the lure out of the fish really quickly without too much damage. Like with treble hooks, they often get caught in their gills and so on. So you can maximise the release of the fish, which is really important. Trevally. I think it's a goldie. There's a big fish below it too, boys. Might be a big brown shark. Oh, nice golden trevally on the micro jig. Unfortunately, this fish has got under the boat and there's not much I can do apart from try and work it around, which is not easy with a little rod like this. I'm in all sorts of trouble here, let me tell you. Right. Okay, managed to get him out of there. Negotiating around the... Not a bad fish, this one. Look at all the surface explosions over there from bait getting hammered against the reef. I want to try and get the line back now because it's pretty shallow water and we don't want him to get down to the bottom because then I'll get shredded in the coral and the rocks. So the key now is pump and wind as fast as I can, keep pressure on the fish. Use the rod as a lever to try and work him up. Coming back towards the boat. And he's going back under the boat, which is really annoying. Oh, big golden trevallies eaten by sharks. So my guy's still hanging loose right down on the bottom. I'm putting as much pressure on as I can, bearing in mind that I've got reasonably light line. It's coming up now. It's not a bad fish. Not a bad queenie. There you go. Fun and games on light tackle. It's not a bad queenie on light gear. Great sport fish, probably one of the greatest tropical sport fish you're ever going to get. The old queenie, they fight hard. They jump. This one didn't jump, but they usually jump. Look fantastic. Cracking fish. We should get this back in the water as soon as we can. Woohoo! Yeah, just the sounder lit up with fish, and I dropped the little jig down and it just instantly hooked up. I'm not sure what it is, probably another queenie, but putting up a pretty good fight on this light gear. Coming up the surface there, yeah, another queenie. The sounder was just alive with fish, just almost blacked out. It was awesome. You know then if you drop your lure down you're going to get whacked. And that's what happened. But they fight hard, these queenies. They're so strong when they put their side against the current. This one, oh, hit me right on the bottom. Okay, got him up. Okay, good stuff. Nice work, mate.
too big, you probably just wait.
Oh, it's a flag.
After the frantic action on the queenfish, we decided to do something different on our second to last day. We headed out to fish an area just around the corner from Albany Island. It was a deep ledge that rose up from about 90 feet of water. We were using soft plastics and bait and really hoping that we would catch some good reef species, coral trout, finger mark, and maybe even a big GT.
Oh no, it's a Spanish.
Good flag. Good flag.
Flag, plenty. Okay, we've come out today and we've got some really variable light conditions. We've actually got a lot of these monsoonal clouds pushing over, dropping rain, darkening it up a little bit. I originally started with a grey lens on, but I've changed actually to one of these new test pairs. It's a copper base. What that means for me is it's not quite as dark as the grey, so it allows me to pick up those little changes in depth, coral bommies and things like that. It highlights colours really well.
Oh. Hey, nice one. Finger market. Beautiful finger market.
Alright, so we've just come here between two islands. You've got the current. Whoa, whoa! Sorry about that. Oh dear. Angry. I'm using an elevator rig with a 7-inch plastic. A Saltiga 5000 50-pound braid. She's pretty locked up. Oh dear. Ah, gone. Just one would have done. So, okay, hammer has hooked up to something. It looks pretty decent. What were you using, hammer? A plastic? Oh dear. Okay, we've just come here between two islands. We've got the current running through. We're just fishing over a little rock bar that's underneath us here apparently, and we're getting a few fish, coral trout, finger mark. Some of the guys are using bait. I'm actually using a soft plastic. Already been stitched up once. Hopefully we can get a few more fish. But either plastics or bait, depending on what you use. My preference is to not get smelly, so that's why I like using plastics. But these guys are happy to throw on a bit of squid and see what happens. It's only a guppy. Nothing massive by the looks of things. Ooh! Oh, they're both on. That's it, I'm moving to the front where it's all happening. Anything decent? What have you got? Excuse me. A tricky? We're just dropping some baits on a little reef behind an island here where we're catching some nice nanny guy, little tricky snapper, otherwise known as the red throat. It's a really fun way of fishing. You really don't know what you're going to get. We've got about 3 or 4 people, missed one, 3 or 4 people fishing. We're catching all sorts of different species, and there's not a lot better to be doing up here, to be honest. There's not a lot of light left, and essentially what a lot of people will do is just take their glasses off, but what that does mean is that they're then getting all that glare off the water. So by changing your lens in your glasses to something different, like a photochromic, they will lighten up as it gets darker, and it really allows you to still get that glare cut down, but still be able to see enough light to actually see the bottom structures, the dips, the bommies and things like that. These are the beautiful little nanny guys that we've been catching out here. They're stunning colours, fantastic eating. We're going to actually keep this one for dinner. They fight really well, for a little fish like this. We're using pretty heavy gear and some bait, but awesome fun in any case. Jim's got one down the back. The boy's got two actually. The boys are pretty happy. They're going to have some nice dinner tonight. But fantastic fish to catch, beautiful colours. I don't think I've quite seen anything so red in my life. They really come out of the water and look spectacular.
Going real close to them. Lift them up a little bit.
G'day, Jim Harnwell here from Fishing World magazine. I'm on Albany Island, which is on the eastern side of Cape York, and we're doing a fishing trip up here with the guys from Mako Sunglasses. I just want to take a little bit of time out from our fishing to talk to Tom, who's in charge of R&D with Mako, and to get some advice from him on what fisher should be looking for in a quality pair of sunglasses. So Tom, what are the key elements a fisher needs to know about when he's going in to buy a new pair of sunnies?
There are about three things, Jim. You need to look at fit, first and foremost. If a frame doesn't fit, it's going to be uncomfortable. You've got to stop right there.
Yep.
The next most important thing, I think, is the quality of the lenses.
Yep.
You need to make sure that you've got high quality lenses. The third thing is the quality of the frame. You've got to make sure that the frame's going to be able to withstand the conditions, the heat, the sunscreen, all these things.
And Tom, what makes a really good quality lens?
Jim, the quality of the lens is really defined by its clarity. If you can't see through the lens, it's no good to you. Clarity is particularly good in glass. It's the clearest optical product that we can use. The other thing that I think is quite important in a lens is its durability. Glass is very scratch resistant, several times more so than any other material, and that's obviously a very important thing when you're out on the water.
So we've had an opportunity to come out to this beautiful little island on the Barrier Reef. We've got out of the boats. There's some nice deep stretches of water along these little spit here. There's a rock wall to the rear of us where a couple of guys are testing some of the newer lenses. And this sort of fishing is maybe the most exciting style of fishing you can actually do while you're up here. Eyesight is everything. You're looking for fish. We pulled up and there were sharks swimming past. There's a few GT cruising around. When you're fishing in an environment like this, polarised glasses really do make a difference. For this style of fishing, the brown base lens is perfect. It highlights colours really well, allowing you to really see those depressions, rises in the coral, fish swimming past, and it also allows you to pinpoint and aim where the fish are. You're not just firing casts all over the place. So you can really see what you should be aiming at. They cut down just the right amount of light. They're not too dark. If you had a pair that was really dark, you may not be able to see enough structure underneath the surface. Being a polarised glass, they really cut down on that surface glare. You'll notice if you wore normal, non-polarised lenses, they'll actually darken what you see, but they won't cut the glare out of the water surface. That's why lenses like these are perfect for this style of fishing. Watching these guys back here catching some fish, I've seen a couple of trevally come in, a couple of queenfish. It's making me pretty jealous. I'm going to see if I can get one myself. When we pulled up here, I've noticed lots of little garfish just milling around just off the beach here. So I've gone for a little surface lure like this one, similar in colour and profile to the bait fish that I can see. Out further, we've got some rocky and coral outcrops that you can see quite easily with light and dark patches, which represent a depression or a rise in the bottom surface. I'm just aiming my lure essentially at some of those coral bits of coral I can see, and just bringing it in slowly, and then I'll just pause it. If I see a nice big clump of coral, that may hold a fish. Work it a little bit again, stop again. It's a fun way of fishing. You can actually see your lure, and you'll often see fish come and chase it. And if we're lucky enough, you'll get a nice GT come up and smash it right in front of your face.
golden trevally. Just spun up here along this wall. Saw him come chasing the lure. He had one go at it. He missed it. I could see he was still there. So I sort of paused for a brief second and gave it another quick little wind, and he was onto it straight away. Great fun on light gear along a stretch of rocks like this. I'll let him go before he spends too much time out of the water. Awesome little fish. After a fantastic week of fishing, the final trip in towards Albany Island was a solemn affair. I was sad to be leaving, but we'd made some great friends.
No, they don't. Not at all. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We finally managed to catch that mud crab we'd been trying for all week. It was a good size one, and he'd have to feed the whole team, but I was sure we could make it work. Along with the mud crab, we had some freshly cooked local prawns. And thankfully, Chef Simon managed to keep a couple of squid that the guys had caught off the wharf from being used as bait. They made a fine meal, and there was not a better way to end our week at Albany Island.